Hi, I'm Kylie Neal, founder of Kan Culture, and welcome to Kan Talk Kulture. In this podcast, I sit down with some of Australia's most progressive founders and CEOs to explore the heart of their company cultures, what drives them, what they value, and what it's really like to work for the companies they lead. You'll also find occasional episodes packed with practical HR insights to help you build safer, stronger, and more trusted workplaces. So whether you're a new team member getting to know your workplace, curious about creating remarkable company cultures, or just wanting to know more about implementing HR best practice, you're in the right place. Let's dive in. Hi, I'm Kylie Neal. Welcome to the Kan Talk Culture podcast. I think we're overcomplicating work, like a lot. We've turned it into strategies and frameworks and models and performance language. We've created entire systems to explain motivation, retention, culture, engagement, belonging, leadership, effectiveness. And I get it. Some of that stuff is really useful. Language can really help give us an understanding. Frameworks can help. Structure can help. But sometimes I think we use complexity to avoid something that is much more obvious. Because actually, people are quite simple. They're not easy, but simple. And that's a real distinction. And I think that distinction matters. People are not easy because they're layered. They have histories, stress, needs, insecurities. They have strengths and patterns and identity and expectations, and they have responsibilities outside of work, things that they're carrying that no one else can see. No, people aren't easy, but they are simple in this sense. Most people are not asking for anything wildly extravagant at work. They want to feel respected. They want to feel considered. They want to feel like they matter. They want to feel seen, heard, valued. And that's what I want to talk about today. Because I think a lot of leadership challenges, a lot of team issues and culture problems get much harder than they need to be when we lose sight of that. Earlier this week, I had a conversation with someone. They said very, very plainly, I don't need more money. I just want my manager to actually listen to me. And there was something about that sentence that really stopped me because it was so clear. It wasn't performance jargon. There was no grand speech. There was no complicated diagnosis of the workplace. It was just a pure human truth. I just want my manager to actually listen to me. And the more I thought about it, the more I realized how often that's what's sitting underneath people's frustration at work. Not always, of course. Compensation matters, workload matters, equity matters, opportunity matters, leadership quality, it matters. Those things are real. But when those bigger structural things are in play, there's often another layer underneath them, the deeply human experience of not feeling acknowledged. When you're not feeling considered, when you're not feeling understood, when you're not feeling like your voice has any weight. And we spend so much time trying to fix engagement with big things, with new systems, new initiatives, new values campaigns, new check-ins, new terminology, new surveys, new rollouts, new technologies, a yoga class. But meanwhile, a lot of people are quietly thinking, I just want someone to hear me. I just want my input to matter. I just want to feel like I'm not invisible here. That's not a small thing. That's foundational. Because When someone feels invisible at work, it affects more than just their mood. It really affects how much of themselves they bring, how much effort feels meaningful, how much they trust the place or the environment that they're working in, how long they can stay connected before they begin to detach. So when I strip it all back, I keep coming back to three things. At the end of the day, people want to feel seen, heard, valued. Three simple words, but not small ones. So let's break it down. Let's talk first about seen. To be seen is to feel recognized for who you are, not just for what you produce. It means that people don't only notice you when you hit a target or solve a problem or perform well in a meeting. It means there's some real acknowledgement of your humanity, your strengths, your effort, your working style, your growth, even your struggle. Being seen is different from being monitored. A lot of workplaces are very good at tracking people. They track output, they track attendance and deadlines and utilization and metrics, and they have performance reviews. But tracking is not the same as seeing. Seeing sounds more like, I know how you work best. I notice the care you put into that. You've been carrying a lot lately. You're quieter than usual. I just wanted to check in. You have a perspective here that matters. That kind of attention changes how people experience work. Because when someone feels seen, they don't have to work as hard to prove that they exist. And a lot of people are exhausted from doing exactly that. Let's talk about being heard. To be heard is more than being allowed to speak. This one matters because a lot of leaders think they're listening when really they're just creating space for themselves or for other people to talk. And they're not the same thing. People can technically have airtime and still feel completely unheard. You can speak in a meeting and walk out thinking, that didn't land, or that got dismissed, that got reinterpreted or skipped over, or that got tolerated, but it wasn't received. Being heard means your voice actually means something on the other side. It means consideration, reflection, curiosity, response. It means that people don't just wait for their turn to speak, they actively engage with what you said. And people know the difference. People know when someone is listening to understand versus listening to reply. They know when feedback is welcomed versus managed. They know when their input is invited because it's genuinely wanted, and when it's invited because it looks good to ask. You can't fake being heard because you really feel it immediately. Let's talk about valued. This is where it moves beyond nice words, because a lot of workplaces are fluent in appreciation language, but weak in meaningful action. People might get thanked and praised and told they're important, but then their time is disrespected, their ideas are ignored, their workload is unreasonable, or their development is neglected, or their boundaries are treated as inconvenient. And that doesn't feel like value, that feels like branding. To feel valued means there is alignment between what is said and what is done. If someone is valued, you can usually see evidence of it. Their voice influences decisions. Their contribution is acknowledged specifically. Their growth is invested in. Their well-being is considered. Their concerns aren't brushed aside when they become inconvenient. And people really know the difference between being called valuable and being treated like they matter. And once again, you can't fake this. People can feel the gap between words and reality, and that gap is often where trust starts to erode. And if I'm honest, I've had moments where I didn't feel that. Moments where I've walked out of a meeting thinking, did anything I actually say land? Did anyone really hear what I was trying to say? Or was it just one more voice in the room that got nodded at and moved past? I think a lot of people know that feeling. It's really hard to explain how much of it can stay with you because it's rarely dramatic. It's subtle. And, you might have one of those meetings and then you leave the room and you keep going, you do the next thing, you go back to your emails, you get on with your day. But there's something in you that registers it. Something in you that says, that didn't connect, that didn't matter. I'm not sure I was really met there. I didn't matter. And that feeling doesn't always disappear when the workday ends either. It follows you home. And you replay the conversation. You question whether you said it badly. You wonder if you should have spoken more clearly or less directly or not at all. And over time, if that feeling repeats enough, it changes how you actually show up. You contribute less freely. You start editing yourself more. You stop bringing certain ideas. You lower your expectations of being understood. And that's not because you have nothing to say, but because part of you has learned that saying it may not change anything. And that is what makes this so important. Feeling unseen, unheard, or undervalued at work is not just a passing emotional inconvenience. It shapes behavior. It shapes confidence, trust, and belonging. It shapes whether people stay open or whether they slowly shut down. And on the other side of that, when someone genuinely feels seen, heard, and valued, you can feel that too. They become more present, they become more honest and creative and more willing to contribute and also more resilient when things start to get hard. And that's not because they're being manipulated into engagement, but because they feel safe enough to invest. So if you lead people, don't overcomplicate it. You don't need another initiative before you get this right. You don't need a more polished value statement. You don't need a better engagement slogan. You don't need a manager toolkit full of scripted empathy. You start here. Am I actually listening? Not waiting, not nodding, not responding, not fixing, not defending. Listening. Am I paying attention to how this person experiences work? Do I know what matters to them? Do I notice when they go quiet? Do I make it easier or harder for them to tell me the truth? Do my actions back up the value I say they have? Because leadership is often less about adding something impressive and more about removing what gets in the way of basic human connection. Ego, speed, assumption, defensiveness, distraction, performance mode. A lot of people do not need a perfect manager. They just need a present one. Someone who notices, someone who responds, someone who makes it easier to speak, someone who treats them like a person, not just a role. That's where trust starts. And trust changes everything. So this is really the invitation. Keep it simple. Allow your employees to be seen, heard, and valued. If people don't feel those things, no framework will save you for long. And if they do feel those things, a lot of other things get easier. Communication, trust, engagement, retention, performance, culture. Because when people feel seen, heard, and valued, everything changes. Thank you so much for listening, and we'll see you on the next episode of Kan Talk Culture. Thanks for joining me on Kan Talk Culture. I'm Kylie Neal. I hope today's episode gave you a clearer view into the values driving your workplace, or sparked new ideas about building a remarkable company culture. If you're a founder or CEO interested in sharing your culture story, or if you're looking to build a safer, stronger, and more trusted workplace, let's connect. Visit canculture.com. That's KANKULTURE.com to learn more. Please hit that subscribe button to hear more real conversations with founders and CEOs and hands-on episodes full of people-first culture advice. I look forward to connecting with you on our next episode.